Welcome into the Sports Buffoons podcast. Welcome on in, back again, once again, to the Sports Buffoons studios. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we got our fellas here, Tanner Dawson and Jason JG. What's up, guys?
What's up, everybody?
What's up, yo?
How we feeling today here on a fine Wednesday, episode 102?
Feeling pretty good with these new equipment that we all have, and I had a great interview this morning with Let's Talk Sports, who we are partnership with right now. Definitely check them out, guys. There's tons of great channels on there. They had an NFL reporter on today. They have a professional former baseball player that hops on every now and then. That tons more content on there, and we will be partnering with them as well. So you'll see us also on their channel, and vice versa.
Those guys, they have a future, or they had a past Hall of Famer on their show too, right?
Yeah. So actually, they got rescheduled.
Oh, okay.
So that'll come back.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was a good one. I liked it. You spent like 30 minutes with them this morning, right?
Yeah, it was great. We talked Chiefs, talked a little bit about the MLB, which we'll get into the show today as well. So, but yeah, it was just a great conversation, and I mean, what else can you do at 6:30 in the morning?
Maybe get drunk. So what are you guys drinking right now?
Well, right now I've got some Maker's Mark, and I'm sporting my Royals apparel right now, and this will probably be the last time I can sport that apparel for another month or so, probably a month and a half, who knows.
Yeah, but you're wearing a throwback. You're wearing the Giordano Ventura jersey, so, you know, I think he can be playing somewhere in heaven. Is the way I like to look at it.
It's still my team, though. Like, I support my home team, and I'm sad at this point that I'm not going to be going to any games anytime soon. So it's kind of like my last hurrah when I sport the Royals apparel for this show, and then probably not going to wear it again for a while.
Yeah, that is very true. Well, here's the thing, guys. We're going to be talking some MLB, some NBA, as well as some Chiefs with you guys today. We have the NFL Combine that began yesterday, actually. The weigh-ins were beginning. And here coming up Thursday is when we get the first 40-yard dashes coming in for the receivers and running backs and quarterbacks, I believe, as well. All throughout the weekend, we'll be watching that, covering that. And I'm planning on doing a little Chiefs-related solo, wrapping it all up on Sunday at some point. So keep an eye out for that, as well as I'm going to have a lot of Chiefs free agency discussions as well to talk about with you guys out there.
Do we want to debut the logo?
Yeah, let's put the logo on the screen, Tanner. Let's see what
here's what we got.
Came out with.
Settling the kingdom, guys.
Yes.
Straight Chiefs show by Mike. You'll see Jason and I, I'm sure, on there at times. As he goes about it, but yeah, we're definitely going to keep the Chiefs scene alive, and there'll be tons to talk about.
Guys, football season really never ends, and they've made it that way. They've been very smart about their structuring of the schedule, and so as soon as the Super Bowl is over, they get the Combine, then they have the new league year starts on March 16th, and then they have free agency, and then the draft, and then rolling into the off-season workouts and all that kind of stuff, and so it never really ends, which is awesome for me anyway. Unlike for the MLB's currently situation with Rob Manfred coming out and having a little press conference, kind of giggling in the moment of talking about how it's going to be canceling some games, at least the first two series, which we all know that's going to be more. I would expect somewhere between the first 4 to 8 weeks to be vanished for eternity coming up this MLB season. And I've talked about this before, but I actually want to see a 100-game season, so I'm not that upset about it right now. It's going to make me actually care about the games more, seeing less games. But I know that the players and coaches are pretty upset about this, especially the way it was handled by the owners. I think it was kind of leaked out by the ownership of the MLB and maybe even Commissioner Manfred himself that they were close to making a deal just a couple days ago. And everyone was, on their heels going, wait a minute, okay, we're about to get this done. Let's start getting everything ready, organized, maybe fly out to our cities we need to be in. And all of a sudden the rug was pulled out from underneath them. And it turns out, nope, we are putting this thing on pause for a while. So, guys, with the way you're looking at this whole thing right now at the MLB, how can we get this thing fixed? How can this turn around and back on track where it needs to be at? Is it possible at all to get this thing right? Because so far it sounds like they are very far off from an agreement.
Jason, go ahead, man.
Well, I got to tell you guys, I feel like the owners knew from the beginning that this was going to be the outcome, at least to this point. And I think that you can look at the fact that Commissioner Manfred was laughing before he even walked up to the podium that's a problem. Now, I don't know if he might have been a little drunk because he's been known to have a few drinks. That's fine. Or if it's possible that somebody paid him off to start laughing before he even walked up to the podium. But I feel like these guys, the owners, they knew the outcome before it even started. And I just look at the players versus the owners as the players need their money, right? Okay, they got to go out, they got to support their families and whatever. The owners on the other side, they don't need the money. Okay, so I look at this as the owners not really caring, even from the very beginning, and they knew that this would be the outcome, probably months ago, because they have other investments. I don't want anybody to look at the owners and think that, oh my gosh, well, April is like probably the lowest revenue for Major League Baseball throughout the entire year. What are the owners going to do? Well, my gosh, they're billionaires. I'm pretty sure they don't care about the April revenue. And so I feel like this was their plan from the very get-go. And whereas with the players' side, I mean, they need the money, but they also wanted to prove themselves by holding out a little bit longer. And, I look at it a little bit different than back in 1994. I was a teenager at the time. And back in 1994, I was actually pretty angry at the players because they went on strike. But this is completely different to me because it's not a strike. The players were locked out. So I don't know what you guys think about that, but that's kind of how I see it from kind of like the overview as far as the players versus the owners.
Well, the thing is the owners are the ones making this decision. That's what the problem is that they're the ones locking the players out and coaching staffs out from having access to the facilities at this point and continue to play games. And some of the things the owners want in return on this new CBA are kind of silly to me. They want to ban the shift, and they want to make the bases bigger at the same time. Which I don't know what you guys are going to think about that. I mean, is stealing bases now going to be a free-for-all? We're going to see guys like Billy Butler out there again coming back and stealing bases because he can reach second base so damn quick now. I mean, I'm not sure what the plan is going to be as far as that go. And, of course, they always have wanted the pitch clock to come out too. And I figured that's always been a matter of time. But some of the things that they've proposed, do you guys agree with any of it at all? Or are they just asinine?
You're talking about the owners, right?
Right.
No. It's just asinine.
Right. So why are they being so difficult? What is the deal here? They're off financially. They're off on some of the things that they want to change about the game. I think banning the shift is ridiculous. I think that players need to adjust. And I've always thought that way is that, let's not make it easier for the hitters or, make it to where you have to adjust and learn how to hit it the other way. Ted Williams, was at one point, with everyone was going to shift against Ted Williams at one point, he starts hitting the ball the other way in the opposite field. And so at that point, the shift was no longer working against him.
Correct. So a lot of it is actually based off of history. So you asked the first question, what can MLB do essentially to get this thing rolling? It ties into the same question here. They need to go back like 3 CBAs ago and not bow down to the freaking owners and lose all this momentum they have. So basically what you're seeing right now is not really a owners versus players kind of deal. It's the players are like, all right, we're tired of bending over essentially and getting ripped off the entire time. The last 3 CBAs. Now it's our time. You're going to pay us. You're going to pay us equal to the other sports because you're making the revenue. But the owners are just thinking, oh, if we just keep putting pressure on like they did Monday they came out, they leaked it, right? Oh, yeah, we got close to a deal. And obviously came in with a lowball offer.
Right, they're trying to make the players look bad by doing that.
And that's what the owners did in the past. And so that's where they're trying their old techniques as well. And that's what they're going to do. But these players now are like sitting there like, no, we'll sit out. We'll sit out until you do this correctly. And it is a lot about money. Not necessarily all the extra stuff. Yeah, pitch clock, the bigger bases, which is the dumbest thing in the world to me, but whatever. It's more of a safety
I think
issue
adding the
probably.
DH to the NL was
I love the DH.
I like that idea.
I'm all for universal DH.
Yeah, then you're actually adding a job to the mix there.
Like, granted, there are some pitchers that are going to be really upset. Zach Greinke would be one.
He's 38. It's time to go anyway.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of pitchers that can hit. Show Ohtani, you lose the spot with Ohtani if he's pitching that day, so then he wouldn't get to hit.
Yeah, true.
Anyways, back to it. Essentially, what you're seeing right now is the players catching up off of last pretty much 3 CBAs of what they were supposed to get in the first place. And instead of making this CBA such a small increase, you're pretty much seeing that huge increase, a 30 to 50% gain in inflation rate, because that's what the other sports did for their players. And so the MLB is like, hey, we want that as well. And this is more for the minor league guys, the smaller guys, the guys that are coming up from the minors to the majors, than it is for Max Scherzer, for then a Justin Verlander, those kind of guys, the dominant stars already. This is more for the future of baseball for players as well, and this is more gearing of holding the owners accountable, of actually not gouging these guys. So.
Well, you talked about, as far as the players and all this trying to stand their ground. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. I saw this picture that come out on Twitter yesterday of the group of MLB players that are present for these, discussions and negotiations. And I only knew probably 3 of them just by the look just by their face. Mm-hmm. I think Scherzer was there, actually, and there was Noah Syndergaard, and there was somebody else. Otherwise, there was about 10 or 15 other guys in that picture. I didn't know a single one of them. Just by looking at them. Yeah. Or if you showed me a picture of any NFL negotiation with players on there, I can name off every single one of them. And it's not just because I'm an NFL fan. It's because they don't do a good job of promoting their players. These guys do not get the recognition as far as the facial recognition, because you got your Mike Trouts of the league and the Shohei Ohtani. But after that, it's like, no one can tell anyone from the other. And yet, this is a sport that doesn't wear a face mask.
No, and so that's part of the issue too, right? So we're not just talking about money and essentials. You're talking about different arbitration deals of when they can come up. You're talking about deadlines that teams purposely wait till after whatever it is in June to send the guys up, so they don't have a service. You don't know who these guys are because they're sitting in the minor leagues the entire time, and when they should be in the majors by now. But due to basically team-friendly deals in a way, if they bring up after a certain date, it's technically not a service time, and then they're not eligible to get that big money paid. They get an extra year essentially of waiting. So that's the stuff that they're also debating is service time, because if Bobby Witt, for instance, as Royals fans, right? If Bobby Witt doesn't come up till the end of June, right? Let's say that date's June 6th. After June 6th, you don't see Bobby Witt probably till after the All-Star break. Are you really going to remember anything else that happened, like for Bobby Witt after the All-Star break? You're not. No. You're not. And that's the whole issue, is it's a lot of the service time, and that's also what they're fighting for, is so you know who these guys are before they're 33, 35 years old in the MLB with a, 10+ mil contract.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, with that said, do you guys think this thing gets done soon? Because apparently they're going to go back to negotiating again starting on Thursday. So this would be potentially tomorrow if they chose to. But I don't know that's going to go through or that's going to happen. So at this point, what's the next step? What's going to get these guys to come to some kind of agreement? Or do we all just have this continuous pissing contest and everyone just sits out and loses money?
Someone caves. Right.
I feel like right now the consensus is that we're going to get a deal done so that the season can start on May the 1st. And I tend to disagree with that, and here's why. The players, whenever these guys sit back down at the negotiating table, the players are going to want to be paid for the full 162 games. And the owners are going to look them right in the eye and say, oh, hell no, you're not getting paid for that. Mm-hmm. And so I can easily see this thing getting dragged out until the point where we're not starting the season until June, maybe even July. I think this thing is going to get ugly because, as I said earlier, the owners, this is not their only investment. They have other, if you're a billionaire, you do have other investments besides Major League Baseball. You don't really care that much. And so I could easily see a scenario where we don't see a game until June, maybe middle of June. And so I think as a baseball fan, I'm preparing for the worst.
I'm preparing so they want 4 weeks of spring training, essentially, whether that's in their stadium or if they get it done within this next week, they'll be in Phoenix. But essentially, 4 weeks of spring training. So no matter when they do it, they get 4 weeks of off-season work still to do. So I'm thinking, so here's my best bet. Best case scenario for me is it starts when the All-Star break starts. That's when our season starts.
Wow, so
Which
it's
is
actual season.
Literally,
starts
like
around
you
the
want
All-Star
100
break.
games and all that, you're looking at 2.5 months of essential baseball.
Okay.
So
Going
give me
into
what's
eight-
the date? What's the date that you would throw out for the season to start?
Week of the 4th of July.
Wow.
Wow.
He's going way back.
So
then.
Tanner and I are kind of along the same.
At best bet,
Time
I
frame
feel
here.
after that whole shenanigans they did Monday and then the low ball on Tuesday, they're so far apart.
Yeah.
Like
I'm
you
thinking
can just
somewhere around June.
just look at it
personally.
ESPN guys and look at the different MLB sites. Jeff Passan was on today talking about it too, and I mean there's such a dramatic difference that we're not looking at this thing ending anytime soon.
Well, seriously, when you're the commissioner and you walk up to the podium and you can't stop laughing like Rob Manfred, I mean, he doesn't care, and the owners don't care. That sends a bad signal to me, and that's why I think it's going to be later rather than sooner.
I wouldn't necessarily say they don't care. I'm gonna be like it could just be a. I don't know how to say. I heard the word today, and I can't remember what it was, but basically it's a perception, essentially, because the guy's laughing. He doesn't even know how to really react. So
Yeah.
you're just kind of getting up there, and you're just kind of like, dude, you know, like.
So you don't.
He's
you-
trying to be serious, but his
He's
emotions overcome.
Yeah,
that.
he's like, I don't even know what to say. Like they just got out of a 6 or 8 hour talks that day, and they were harsh, right? And that's the whole thing is that you get out of an emotional 8 hour day, and you're telling me that you're not going to have like how do you react? How do you?
So
react?
you don't think that Manfred was drunk like he was after the Dodgers won the World
I
Series?
mean, he might have taken an extra tequila shot that day afterwards just to calm his nerves. But I mean, the guy, like, I don't feel like he was a purposeful, I screwed the players and the fans. It was more like I don't even know. Like we have so much room to go.
I'd rather see some drunk negotiating going on between both sides because
So we got
where you
fighting
get
in
the real fun
baseball,
stuff.
drunk negotiating.
Absolutely.
Like-
and they should allow more fighting, like Jason has said before. So I'm for
You guys
all of
kill me
the
with that
drunk
baseball.
things that they could possibly
they should
do.
have more fighting.
So, you guys, you want to talk about a sport that is going to play though and still playing right now?
What sport's that?
The NBA is currently still running right now. So we're past the midway point of the NBA season, obviously, and we're seeing some crazy things go on right now within the league. And a lot of it's from injuries on one end, a lot of it's from the trades that have gone on. But I'm seeing some of the top-heavy teams that were just dominating here for the longest part of the season, like the Warriors and the Suns now have lost 2 in a row each. And I'm now seeing the 76ers really step it up with the addition of James Harden. And you're looking at a team with Joel Embiid with James Harden at the same time. I mean, that's a very, very talented team to watch out for as the season unfolds because right now they're sitting there with the record, I think, somewhere around like 6th or 7th overall as far as win percentage goes in the league. And that could be climbing up this board real quick along the lines here. So for me, it's just going to be one of those things to watch and see what happens with CP3. The Suns have not been the same since his injury. And now we're looking at Devin Booker being on the health and safety protocol list, which I think is also code word for the COVID-19 list, Jason, I believe. And then we're looking at the Warriors now. That defense is not playing at the same level it was just a month ago. And so we're starting to see them dwindle away a little bit. But I just want to see what your guys' opinions are going forward for the rest of the season is as the tables are turning now, what's going to happen here at the back end of this regular season?
I'm going to start off by pointing out the fact that the 76ers are playing right now. It's 80-77 over the Knicks. I do have them right now in my power rankings at number 4. So we're going to do the power rankings anyway. I might as well just get started with the Sixers. The reason I have the Sixers at number 4 is because James Harden is playing on fire right now, starting with a new team. Joel Embiid looks great, but I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit on the Sixers because a lot of the media outlets out there have the Sixers winning the Eastern Conference. And quite frankly, they've just played the Knicks twice. We're going to assume that they're going to win this game against the Knicks tonight. But they just beat the Knicks twice, and before that they played Minnesota. So those are your first 3 games with James Harden. So, yes, James Harden looks amazing, and I love the roster. They got Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey is averaging 17 points a game. Tobias Harris averaging 18 points per game. We know what James Harden and Joel Embiid bring to the table. But right now, they're my number 4 team for various reasons. I think it's kind of like the sexiest team on the block right now. It's the sexy toy, the newest toy on the block right now. But, I don't trust them as far as getting out of the East. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts before we go up through the rest of our rankings. But I do have the Sixers at number 4 in my NBA power rankings.
Are we doing a top 5 or a top 4, Jason?
Whatever you want.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you had a 5th one to throw in there just to be just underneath the Sixers here.
I do have a top 5.
Okay.
So-
And I don't want to be disrespectful here. That's why I put the Phoenix Suns as my number 5 team.
Wow.
And, I don't want people out there to panic because CP3 is injured. Devin Booker is on the health and safety protocols. So everybody's going to say, oh, my gosh, the Suns are going to shit the bed. Just pump the brakes on that a little bit. CP3, Devin Booker are going to be back. They are battle-tested, and they are still a championship contender. Do you know why? Because there's only one team in the West that you have to get past. Anything can happen in this league.
LeBron James.
And so you've got the Suns and the Warriors, right? That's the only 2 decent teams that could be competing for a championship in the West. And so, all you people that want to throw the Suns out the window, me included, because I hate Arizona sports teams, just pump the brakes on it a little bit, okay? I still have them at number 5.
Yeah, for now. But a month or 2 from now, it could be a different story. So we'll see how much of a hater you want to be as the year goes along, So, Tanner, what are you thinking about what's going on right now in the NBA?
For right now in the NBA, guys, there's a lot actually going on, truly, with injuries, different stuff going on. The Phoenix Suns, obviously, with the 3rd easiest schedule, losing coming up here. So we'll see if they continue their skid. But for me, guys, 5, I do have the 76ers at 5. I just think they cracked the top 5 right now. There's still a lot of tests to be done for them. James Harden is actually performing way better than I thought he would in this role with Joel Embiid. Those guys are actually killing people, which is nice. And they just came back from, I believe, a 15-point deficit before we started the show to take the lead against the Knicks. So, you're just seeing it tonight right now after a back-to-back game. So I think the 76ers are a threat. And if they keep performing the way they are and Joel Embiid stays healthy, stays in MVP caliber, you're looking at the 76ers potentially take some games in the playoffs to make it to that conference finals.
Yeah, I agree with that. I got the 76ers as my number 5 team as well on my power rankings. And a lot of that is due to the fact that I think that this team now is more complete currently than by far than it was, before the trade that happened with Harden. And so I just like that whole chemistry of that team right off the gate, get out there and already performing at their best. Could potentially win 4 games in a row now if they can pull this one off tonight against the Knicks. We'll see how that one unfolds, though. Guys, what about the Bulls? The Bulls, a team at all. We've seen DeRozan now dominate throughout this season, and he's actually 4th in the NBA in points per game. Been Mr. Consistent to this point in the season. And actually, I think he either tied or broke one of Michael Jordan's 30-point per game record.
I think he broke it
at one point. It was like 10 in a row or something like that, and DeRozan had 11 at some point this season. So the guy's playing phenomenal, but is this a one-man band? Is he carrying the team by himself? And what are the odds this team has any chance at all to perform in the playoffs?
I love the roster, but there's just not a lot of firepower on that team besides DeMar DeRozan. You got Vucevic, Lonzo Ball. It's a great roster, but these guys are not a team that I would trust in a playoff setting. So, I always talk about the regular season versus the playoffs. And the Chicago Bulls, and I'll even throw the Miami Heat on there because I'm sure you guys are going to talk about them anyway. These are 2 really good regular season teams that are not going to make it too far in the playoffs. I don't see them as championship contenders. a lot of teams can do great things in the regular season depending on their schedule, but I just don't like the Bulls advancing into the Eastern Conference Finals.
I fully agree with you,
There's
Jason.
just too much other firepower in the league, I think.
There's just too much going on that side of the league, especially. But I mean, DeRozan and Levine essentially is your main ones, and outside of that, the Bulls are 12-16 against winning teams. So you got to beat winning teams to be competitive.
Yeah.
They, I mean, obviously they don't crack my top 5. DeRozan is saving them in majority of those games, but I mean, outside of that, Bulls are not a finals contender in my mind.
Guys, what about my number 4 team on my list, the Grizzlies? You guys agree with that ranking right there, or is that too high?
It's too high. I actually left the Grizzlies off of my list, and I wanted so bad to put them at number 5, but then I thought you guys would paint me as a Suns hater again, which I am.
Yeah.
But I wanted to put the Suns at number 5 to make myself a legitimate analyst. I left the Grizzlies off at number 6. They're off my list because, dude, it's the Ja Morant show, okay? And he's a great budding superstar of the league. I love the guy, and he's going to do great things, but I don't believe in the rest of that roster. And, again, they're going to do a lot of great things in the regular season, but Ja Morant, give him a couple more years, and I think he'll be at the point where he can carry a team on his back, because I do believe he does have the chance to be the next face of the NBA, along with maybe Giannis Antetokounmpo. But right now, I mean, they're not going to make a championship run. So I've got them at number 6.
I'm right there with Jason. I got 6 for as well. It is a Ja Morant show. I mean, it's a great show to watch. Don't get me wrong. It's a phenomenal team to watch. Very, very entertaining. But I just don't see, kind of similar with the Bulls, there's not enough firepower. There's not enough depth to be able to halt some of these better teams in the league, especially if they're on fire. So it's a tough one to put at 6, but I'm going to say they are not a finals contender in my mind, still at the moment.
Jason's not going to like my next one because I think his number 3 team is playing right now against my number 3 team, if I had to guess. I got the Heat as my number 3 team, and you're going to hate that, but the Bucks right now are losing by 2 points to the Heat. I think these are both competitive teams. Obviously, we know Milwaukee won the championship last year and still pretty much got the same team back once again. I haven't really seen that same chemistry come through this season like they had a year ago. And I just like what the Heat are doing right now. I think they got a little bit better flow to them. So, Jason, am I right about my assumption about the Bucks?
I tell you what, dude, the Bucks are not my number 3 team.
Okay.
But we'll save that for later.
Okay.
I love the Miami Heat, and as much as I would love to see Jimmy Buckets make some noise in the playoffs, I just don't think it's going to happen. I've got the Heat below the Grizzlies, as a matter of fact. They are my number 7 team, and I just think that there's not enough firepower. The NBA is all about firepower. I mean, as much as, and I'm a defensive-minded guy, but you've got to have weapons. And as much as I love Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Buckets, it's not enough weapons to get the job done come playoff time. So
Tyler Hero's not going to do it for you?
He'll do it for me, but maybe just barely past the first round. But, hey, maybe they can make it to the conference finals. But even if they do make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, they're not going to win. It doesn't matter who they play against. They're going to lose that series.
I do agree with that, actually.
So here's the deal, right? The Heat are actually my number 4 team, and they do have firepower. They have the 7th ranked best bench in the league right now, where they were ranked 22nd last year. So, obviously, Tyler Hero is a phenomenal. This is led by Jimmy Butler and Bam in the middle there, and those guys are just killing it. Now, they got a big schedule ahead of them, obviously, with Milwaukee right now. They have the Nets and Phillies still this week to go, and we're going to see exactly what the Heat are made of on these next 2 games. And I think Durant's potential return is in a couple days, so I think it is against the Heat. So, I mean, we're going to see exactly if the Heat can pull this next 2 games off, especially the Philadelphia game, which I got circled as will probably be the game of the week for them. So there's something there, but I think the Heat has done enough at the moment, especially the last couple weeks, to get into the top 5-4 spot. They are a contender, and as we saw a couple years ago, they are somebody to watch for.
Yeah, I got to throw one more thing out there right now. The Miami Heat are the number 1 seed, just in case you guys
Correct.
didn't know, in the East.
Right.
And the Brooklyn Nets are the number 8 seed.
Correct.
So I'm not making a prediction here, but could you imagine a series where Brooklyn plays Miami in the first round? Not sure who you guys would think would win that game, but
Heat.
you would take the Heat against the Nets?
Yeah.
Right now, I would.
Really?
I think
As
the
of
Heat
as
all
of this
day.
moment, I would.
All right, then.
2 months
so
from
you're
2
not
months
a
from
big
now, then maybe not.
So you don't believe in Ben Simmons?
No, 'cause
okay,
I'm
I
tired of
respect
this,
that.
I'm tired of the same old story with the Nets every year now, the last couple seasons, because it's this talented team, whatever. They come out and they don't get the job done.
Jason.
And we're just not. I like results. Heat give you results. The Nets do not give me the results I need.
Jason, can all their players on the Nets play at home?
Well,
Nope, they can't. The Heat-
you guys do know that when they had Harden, Durant, and Kyrie Irving, they played a grand total of 8 games together.
Correct. And we talked about it all last year, how much they weren't playing together. And now we saw
And it's
Harden's finally
we're-
gone.
Once again,
We're
they're not
still
playing
stuck in the
together.
situation.
It's the same thing.
Durant's hurt. Kyrie can only play road games still at the moment.
I
So
want
he can only play
results.
8 games in the season. What are they going to do when it comes playoff time and the band's not lifted yet?
Well, I think they're all saving themselves for playoff time. That's my personal opinion. But
Okay, go LeBron.
when I go to the Nets, and
That's
they
exactly
are
what it sounds like.
right. When I go to the Nets, they are my number 3 team right now. The
Really?
Only the only reason I put them that
They're
high,
top 5 on your list?
they're number 3, and the reason I have them that high is because with the Nets you have to make a few assumptions. You have to
wanna
make
hear
a
this.
lot of assumptions.
A lot of
You have to
wishing-
assume.
Wishing in one hand and shitting in the other.
So you have to assume that Kyrie is going to be playing in all of the games, which I do believe that that's more probable than not. I do believe that that mandate is going to be lifted sooner
soon, okay.
rather than later. And so
Yep.
I'm not too worried about that portion of it. And KD, I do believe that KD is going to be playing in all of the games as well throughout the playoffs. So my only question is Ben Simmons. Is he going to be in shape? Is his lower back injury, is that a major concern or just something where he's trying to play his way back into shape? But I got to put them at number 3 because if by some miracle you have Ben Simmons at full strength and you have the big 3 at full strength, I mean, my gosh, guys, they should be the favorite to win the whole thing. They should be the favorite to win the championship. So that's why I've got to at least put them at number 3 in my power ranking.
So even
do you
with
know what I
losing
call-
Harden, you got them as the favorite still at that point.
Kevin Durant's the best player in the league.
Kevin Durant's not the best
okay.
player in the freaking league.
You guys realize that last year he almost single-handedly beat the eventual champion Milwaukee Bucks by himself. Like it was that close. Like his foot was on the line. He almost made a 3 to send it to overtime, and that they almost won that series.
Quote me here. Brooklyn Nets equals to 2021 Philadelphia 76ers.
They equal?
They equal.
You're saying it's the same thing.
It's the same damn thing.
Okay.
Guess what?
I think the Nets are the same Nets as last year as far as
Guess who
just
blow it?
a lot of high
Ben
hopes and
Simmons
big
blows
names.
it. It don't matter
it's
if he's healthy or not.
You don't get the
Just,
results.
I'm just saying, you guys do realize that James Harden was playing on one leg during that
Yeah,
series,
that's
and
fine.
they almost beat the eventual
always
champion
injured.
Milwaukee Bucks.
I'm
They're
hearing
never
a
healthy.
lot
So
of
you've gotta
hoping
give
and
them a
wishing, and then
little
a
bit.
lot of excuses for other things.
You got to give a little bit of respect there.
All right, what's our
to the
next
Nets.
team?
Guys,
I'm done with
next team on my list, I got the Warriors as number 2 on my power rankings. Even with some of the slippage that has happened, I like Steph Curry. Steph Curry's the best shooter of all time, you guys. So I'm going to take that, and I think that they'll get it back together, get back in rhythm. Guys, teams go through situations here and there where they're not up to their 100% playing abilities, and they slip here and there. And I'm sure us at our jobs do the same thing. I mean, some days we'll sit around and not do shit, and some days we have a lot to do. You know, sometimes we want to put a full effort in, and some days we don't. Well, I think that we're running into that right now in this point of the season with teams like the Warriors and even some of the Suns a little bit too. Certain players on that team, I would say. But yeah, I got the Warriors number 2. What do you guys think?
Well, Mike, you and I actually agree on something for once regarding the NBA. I also have the Warriors as my number 2 team on my power rankings. And the reason why I have them at number 2 is because they don't have a lot of competition in the West. Okay? All they got to do is beat the Suns, who are ailing right now. But I think a lot of people underestimate the Warriors because Draymond Green, he's been struggling with some sort of a back injury. Well, he is back at practice. So if you got Draymond Green coming back, you got Klay Thompson, who is still ramping it up, although Klay Thompson has been averaging 17 points per game, 42% from the field. You've got Andrew Wiggins, 17 points a game. Jordan Poole, 16 points a game. Steph Curry, 26 points per game. That's a lot of weapons. Now, if they were in the Eastern Conference, I might think a little bit differently, but not a whole lot of competition out there in the West. And so that's why I've got the Warriors, a very deep team, a very seasoned team. You know, Steph, Klay, Draymond, these guys have been there and done that. They've got championship rings that they can drop down on the table. So they're not going to be intimidated by anyone, especially with the West of as far as the Western Conference is concerned. So give me the Warriors, second best team in the league.
So I'm going to stay on the Warriors here. They're actually the best team in my league on my projection list here. Mainly the fact that they can overcome injuries. They do have some depth behind there. Andrew Wiggins has stepped up. Steph Curry has stepped up. Their issue is finishing games as of late for whatever reason. Steph Curry just completely falls apart in the second half, as well as the rest of the team. So that's why they're kind of on a losing streak. But outside of that, I'm not really worried about those guys, especially with Draymond coming back, ramping up, getting everybody healthy again. But essentially, I think the Golden State Warriors are still the best team and the team to beat in the league.
Gotcha. Okay, well, guys, my number 1, as you guys guessed it, is still the Suns, despite some of their losses recently. I know that they had gone on a streak, I think, of winning like 11 in a row. Now they've lost 2 in a row with CP3 out and Devin Booker, just trying to do his best to hold on to things there. But they've also had other guys out on the team, too. So they're not fully healthy, relying on McCall Bridges to do a lot of things and Cam Johnson. And some of those guys aren't exactly always your most reliable players at all times. So still, guys, the Suns are up 6 games on the rest of the league when I look at the win-loss record here. So just that alone tells me what I need to know. And 29-9 in the conference. So, I mean, they still got the chemistry, looking at the same team as a year ago. And I think that chemistry goes a long ways. I told Jason recently, this Suns team is the 2015 Royals because the last year's team was the 2014 Royals. And so I'm saying they're going back again, but this time they're going to finish the job when they get there. You guys might not believe that right now, but a matter of time will tell. But I love me some Suns still, and Jason's going to raise them a month from now on his power rankings list.
So you're not worried about their injuries and all that jazz?
Because when the time comes and the playoffs roll around, they will be back to normal. They'll be ready to go again.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you are right on point with ESPN's rankings because ESPN still does have the Suns at number 1 in their power rankings. The only problem with that is they have the Milwaukee Bucks at number 8, which is very disrespectful. So I'm not sure I want to trust ESPN.
I think it's the record.
I don't know if I want to trust them with their rankings, but we'll go with that. So props to you, Mike. You got the Suns at number 1. You're going to ride or die with the Suns. I do have the Milwaukee Bucks number 1 because, all these teams out there, they think they're good. And, in order to be the champ, you got to beat the champ. And so until somebody dethrones the Bucks, I've got to see it to believe it. So I do have them at number 1. And the first thing that people want to talk about is the fact that, they've got kind of a mediocre or below average defense this year. Well, guess what? They had a pretty mediocre defense last year. Do you know what that means in the regular season? It means jack shit. Because any of these teams, when the time comes, they are going to flip the switch in the postseason when it really matters, and that's when the Bucks are going to pump up their defense. You look at in my opinion, he's not necessarily the front runner, but he's top 3 in the MVP conversation. Giannis Antetokounmpo averaging 30, 11, and 6 this year. You've got Chris Middleton. He's averaging 20 points a game. Drew Holiday averaging. It's almost the same exact thing that we saw last year. Yeah. Which means these guys are dependable. You know, they're not playing great defense right now, but they can turn that on at any moment. Drew Holiday is averaging 18 points a game. The only problem I have with the Bucks right now is that Brook Lopez, who is a key piece of that defense, he had back surgery back in December, and so he has returned to practice on a limited basis, but there's no timetable for him to come back at full strength. And so I've got to give my respect to the current defending NBA champion Bucks as my number one team.
I just can't put a team that is 23-18 in the conference as my number one team in the league. I mean, you might as well put the Cavs as in the top five. They got the best defense in the league right now. But I just think that this is a team that you might say it's the same as last year, but the other teams in this league might have gotten better. And so if you're not getting better, if you're staying the same, then what says you're still the best? And that's what I'm worried about with the Bucks. And not to say, I mean, if I was to make my list here, I would put them at number 6 on my list. So just outside the top 5.
Yeah,
I just need to see more from them.
A lot of times what happens when you're trying to repeat or three-peat, if we want to just talk about, you know, teams historically that have repeated or three-peated, I mean, they don't really care too much about the regular season. They're just sort of coasting. You know, they might not be playing great defense. You got guys getting injured here and there. But when it comes showtime, which is in April and May and June, they tend to flip the switch, sort of like LeBron James. Now, I know he's kind of out of the picture this year, but a lot of times, you look at a guy like Kobe Bryant, you know, a lot of these teams, they kind of coasted. They didn't have the best record en route to a championship, but they were still there when it came time to play ball. And so, you know, the Bucks, I've got to give them respect, but, you know, it being a small market team, I feel like there's not a lot of media hype out there for the Bucks because they play Milwaukee. Like, who cares about Milwaukee, right? But yeah, I promise you that nobody, even if you're looking at a Western Conference champion of the Golden State Warriors, whoever comes out of the West, if the Bucks are sitting there, nobody wants any part of the Bucks.
No, you're right, because February and March are used as your kind of a get rest day. You're coming off the All-Star break. You're coming off of, you know, essentially a nice long rest. Well, now you're going to use March essentially to make sure you're not injuring yourself. You're taking your rest, getting your rest in. So, yeah, you're going to lose a few games. So, Milwaukee's my number 3, just based on that. And Giannis is a monster, period. He's grown to actually having a shot now that he didn't have last year. He was really missing. Obviously, it didn't matter because he won the thing. So, but with him having a shot now, that makes him a whole dominant monster when it comes to playoff time. So watch for him. And then my number 2 team is the Phoenix Suns, mainly because they're using their depth as their starters right now. And that's an issue because if you can't depend on anybody off that bench, you're probably not going very far if somebody gets injured, a.k.a. a Devin Booker, a.k.a. a Chris Paul that we're seeing now. There's a lot of issues going on in that Suns. Yes, they had the same team. Great, you have chemistry, but you don't have anybody else coming off that bench when you need it to happen.
Well, right now it's a problem, absolutely. So I think that it's something to be worried about at the moment. I just think that, you know, once we get rolling around to where things really matter, and that team is back and complete and healthy again, that's when I would be looking forward to seeing how they play together once again, like normal, that 49-win team that we've grown to see this season.
Right. And the other thing I want to throw out as far as like regular season versus playoffs, we all know the history because a lot of people are jumping on the Philadelphia 76ers bandwagon right now. Do you guys know what the history is of James Harden in the playoffs? Sometimes he chokes. And like that's the difference between regular season and postseason. You got a guy like James Harden who gets a lot of his points just off of getting fouled and making free throws. You can't expect the world out of a guy like James Harden and the Sixers in the playoff setting because you know, as much as I believe in Joel Embiid, you know, James Harden hasn't really proven himself in the playoffs.
Are we like up to like 8 seasons now of him choking? This will be, what, 8, 9?
He doesn't play defense. So what's the kryptonite to that? the Milwaukee Bucks,
Yeah.
all of them play defense.
That's the issue. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, real quick before we do move on, I do have a quick question for you guys. I don't know if you've been paying attention. CJ McCollum came to the Pelicans. I really want to know your thoughts because they crushed the Phoenix Suns and they went out and beat the Lakers by a lot too. Do you think CJ McCollum puts enough fire in that team right now where maybe they can make a small playoff push coming in and Zion returns? Like maybe a little bit more different, I don't know, mentality on that team?
I don't think they're going to make a playoff push because I don't think Zion is coming back, period. End of story. You look at a guy like Zion, and he came to the Pelicans right after Anthony Davis had left.
Yep.
And Anthony Davis was dying to get out of New Orleans to go play with LeBron. And that's great because they won a championship. But how would you feel if you were Zion Williamson coming into that scenario and the best player on the team just left? Well, how is that going to make you feel? Well, obviously, if I put myself in Zion's shoes, I want to get the heck out of there. So I don't know if he's healthy or not. There's a lot of speculation out there that, he can't keep his diet under control. He's not in shape. I have a different theory. I just think he wants to get the heck out of there because nobody has seen him in months. And so he knows, just use common sense. He knows he's not going to win a championship in New Orleans.
So even with the CJ McCollum coming into play, who's scoring 30 plus, obviously the last couple games, no chance.
No, that's fine. I just, because Zion is not all in. He's not all in on that team, and he's all in on himself, which I think he should be. And I hope that he can stay healthy and get to a better team. But, the whole world, it's not just Zion. The whole world knows that he's not ever going to accomplish anything playing for that team. And so, yeah, I love C.J. McCollum, but the problem is, that's just a bad situation, small market team. And Zion, I'm pretty sure, doesn't want to play there.
All right, Mike, all you.
All right. Well, guys, now that we got the NBA wrapped up and settled up for now, the NFL Combine, by the way, like I said earlier, has begun. And there's a few guys I want everyone out there to watch out for that's going to be fun to watch running tights. So we're going to, not saying like a Chris Jones type of tights where, the things fall out at the end of the 40-yard dash.
I talked
I'm
about
hoping
that this morning.
everyone keeps it in the package this year. But there's a few guys to watch out for. The Chiefs have actually shown interest now in a few different wide receivers to this point. So that's just something to keep an eye on. The guys in mind that they have spoken with to this point are Taysir Mack from Pitt, Mike Harley Jr. from Miami, and George Pickens from Georgia. He's actually one of the top receivers in this entire draft. And someone actually pointed out to Tanner just a couple weeks ago. I was sitting there watching some game film from different guys around the draft, and Pickens stood out to me. I remember actually telling you, he reminded me a lot of A.J. Green when he was coming out and going pro. Like not current today's A.J. Green, but A.J. Green whenever he was playing at Georgia still. But just a real great athlete, and he's actually expecting to run in the 4.3s. I don't see that. I'm thinking more of the 4.4s for this guy. But this is still going to be a guy to watch out for, to be potentially a back end of the first or even beginning in the second round type of receiver. Just a great athlete. But just to watch, if you guys are into speed demons, we got the SMU wide receiver, Danny Gray. He's 6 feet tall, 182. And he should run somewhere in the high 4.2s on this guy. And then another one I really like here, this guy's going to be a physical freak. Tariq Woolen, he is 6'3", 205. His actual Senior Bowl miles per hour was 22.45 miles per hour in that game. That is the fastest recorded miles per hour in a Senior Bowl of all time. And you're looking at a guy this guy's not 5'11", he's not 5'9", he's 6'3", running at that kind of speed. We got something to work with.
I'll take it.
This, you know what
I'll
I'm saying?
take it.
So just someone to watch out for. And then Baylor cornerback Kalen Barnes, expect the low 4.3s from this guy. And I think the Chiefs will be looking at cornerbacks in this draft as well, because I do not see it likely that they do retain Tre'Davious Ward here this offseason. He's going to be requesting somewhere between $10 to $12 million per year. The Chiefs have their eyes set on giving that money to, dispersing it throughout the other parts of the team, potentially free agency. Now, the latest rumor I have heard is that Mahomes has actually expressed interest to the staff that he would like the Chiefs to go after a veteran wide receiver this free agency period. So he doesn't want to have a rookie come in and try to be the WR2. He wants the Chiefs to go for a veteran. So with that in mind, there's plenty of options out there. We got Allen Robinson, of course. We got Chris Godwin.
Mike Williams.
Mike Williams is a big-bodied guy. I mean, if you got Mike Williams, that's a guy you just toss it up in the air and let him do the work, right?
Yeah, so, talked about him this morning.
What about Titus Young? Is he still available?
Titus Young and Tavon Austin, both former West Virginia guys.
Let me think about that. Let me think about it.
Hold on. No, I'm thinking about Austin Pettis.
Austin Pettis.
Titus Young and Austin. I don't know why
Titus Young.
No.
It's the whole Vegas story with him and the Titus Young.
Yeah, the Titus Young thing. Guys, no, Titus Young.
Maybe one day we'll have Jason tell it, but
I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole, but yet I started.
I know you did. Mike didn't catch it.
No, I know. I was too locked in on Austin. So, anyways, you guys, something to keep in mind as we get closer here to the new league year starting, which begins May 16th, is that March 16th. March 8th is actually going to be the deadline to get a franchise tag placed on your players.
Correct.
So with that in mind, we're going to assume we have 5 days left before Orlando Brown Jr. could be re-signed. I don't see that happening at all. He will probably
get tagged.
I give it a 98% chance he gets franchise tagged. He's not going anywhere. At that point, then, I think the Chiefs do try to work out a deal with Tyrann Mathieu to retain him in Kansas City for about 3 more years. But I think Tyrann Mathieu still wants to see what kind of money other teams who are loaded can throw at him. Because if I'm Tyrann Mathieu at that age, just get your big money. You already have a Super Bowl ring. You don't need to stay in KC. Now your quality of life might suck, going to a shitty team. But at least I guess if you're happy about your money, get your money. So, anyways, you guys, right now, what are you guys thinking about going forward here in the offseason for the Chiefs? What are the biggest needs in your opinion?
Jason, go ahead, man.
Well, I'm going to go with what you just said. I mean, Patrick Mahomes wants a proven commodity. And so while I do want to draft a wide receiver to maybe be a guy that we can develop or play right away, it doesn't matter because I want to draft a wide receiver and I want to sign one in free agency. And I feel like we're getting to the point where Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be the last guy on the table. And I was not a big fan of signing him when I first thought about it because of the other options that were out there. But when I took a deep dive into it, I realized he's only going to be 26 years old in November. And while he's not my first choice, he's going to be a guy that the Chiefs can afford to put underneath that salary cap. And so I feel like he's going to be a guy that you want to buy low on because of his injuries. I'm not saying he's injury prone, but that has taken his stock a little bit down simply due to the fact that he was injured a huge portion of last year, and also due to the fact that he's been playing with Big Ben Roethlisberger, who is on the decline. And so I feel like even though Juju Smith-Schuster, he had 2 years ago 97 receptions, 831 yards, and 9 touchdowns, that was with Big Ben. And so I feel like, he was injured this year, but if you can translate that to what would those numbers be under Patrick Mahomes, I feel like while his numbers are deflated right now, I feel like they would be drastically inflated, put into the Andy Reid system, and with Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback versus Big Ben Roethlisberger.
Well, I do want to point out 2 things here about Juju Smith-Schuster is that the Chiefs did offer him a contract a year ago, and he turned down the Chiefs to stay in Pittsburgh, and obviously that was just a moronic mistake. But it reminds me a little bit of what happened with Mathieu the first time the Chiefs wanted him in town. Mathieu ends up choosing to go to the Houston Texans instead to play with Deshaun Watson. That didn't work out. So then Mathieu ends up in Kansas City anyways after he had turned down the Chiefs. So I think it could work out for Juju without a doubt as far as for the future of his career if he goes to a team like the Chiefs. And it's going to come on a cheap deal, like you said. But now here's the thing. As far as I just last heard, Patrick Mahomes' brother is now moving to L.A., so he's going to be doing TikTok dances in L.A. maybe this football season. Juju, we see there's not room for both of them in the same city. This makes sense, Jason. I think you're right. Juju's going to come to Kansas City, do TikTok dances, and his brother is going to be in L.A. because we can't have both of them in the same room. That's going to be disgusting. So
let me throw one other thing out at you. The fact that, when I first looked at his injury history, I had a problem. You know who else I had a problem with their injury history? Sammy Watkins. What did he do? He won us a Super Bowl, and he was effective in that run. And so I feel like Juju Smith-Schuster is the guy. He's not even as injury-prone as Sammy Watkins was coming into that situation. And so this could be a match made in heaven.
It would be a value piece. So, Tanner, what do you think?
I'm not a fan of this Juju talk at all. Okay. I will pass mainly because I think he's going to want too much money for what we would want to spend. So he's not even in my mind. As far as what we're looking for in the Chiefs, I talked about it this morning, guys, on Let's Talk Sports this morning. Basically, I talked about the Chiefs really need to focus on the defensive side, cornerback and safety, at least in the draft for depth. Linebacker as well, kind of late in the draft, will be really nice, and edge would even be great too. Now, you talked about Chardavius Ward, Mike. So there are tweets that they are in heavy talks. The Chardavius agent and Veach and all of them are in heavy talks of trying to make a deal work, which would be really nice to have done.
That'd be surprising to see it done.
I know. And then same with Melvin Ingram, kind of the same deal. They are in heavy talks. They're mutual interests. So hopefully, between those two guys, we can get something worked out. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, guys, they got a lot of work to do. So Tyrann Mathieu, let's just say Tyrann leaves, right? Tyrann gets his payday, big money, all that, all for it. A guy that we can get cheap, and something that Andy Reid is known for is second chances. Marcus May, that was played with the Jets last year, would be a nice, cheap, prove-it deal that he can stay healthy. It was on the DUI. I believe 2 DUIs this last year, or 2 years, something in that range. And he would be a nice second chance kind of opportunity there on the secondary side that could help. And he is effective. He was effective with the Jets that we saw. Instead of him getting big money that he's probably due, we can use that more as a prove-it deal. Say, hey, don't get in trouble here. We'll talk next year and see what happens. And another guy on the back end to replace Tyrann, Devin McCourty, veteran presence. It's not going to hurt at all to have that. So those are kind of my thoughts in there. I had some running back thoughts like Rashawn Penny and Sony Michel, but I'm not really worried about that side. It's more the defensive side right now.
Yeah, I think that the edge rusher is one of the biggest priorities of this team right now because, guys, you guys know how I feel about Frank Clark and his 4.5 sacks, and that's not going to work out. I don't want to restructure nothing. I want his ass off the team.
All right, after June 1st, though.
Yeah, after June 1st to save some of the
Let's save that $19.5 mil. Yeah. After June 1st.
Yeah, that works for me, and that's fine with me. So still at this point, if you get an edge rusher to fall to you in this draft, that's something to look towards, I think. I would give up for easily a receiver at that point, or even a corner at that point, if we find an edge rusher to fall to us at 30th overall. And then you can worry about adding a corner or receivers, in the middle rounds if you'd like.
Okay. Chances, real quick. Chiefs trade their first-round pick because we've seen it done in the past 3 or 5 years. So
I want to do it right now, and I want to go all in, and let me tell you why. The Chiefs need to go all in. They need to take a big swing. You know why? Because the Rams took a lot of big swings last year. What did they do? They won the Super Bowl. So I want to take a big swing for an edge rusher by the name of Josh Allen. Why? Who's our number one adversary in the AFC for the next 10 years? It's Josh Allen. How do we combat that? I want to take a big swing. I want to throw some picks at Jacksonville, bring in Josh Allen, the edge rusher from Jacksonville, had 7.5 sacks last year, 71 tackles. And do we give up picks? Hell yeah, we give up picks. What did the Rams do? They brought in Von Miller. They had edge rushers all over the place. You got to have a pass rush if you're going to win the Super Bowl. And if you want to bring back Melvin Ingram, that's great. We'll bring him back on the cheap. That's fine. But right now, Jacksonville should want to do this deal because Jacksonville is in the shitter, okay? So they should want to get more picks. And so I'm taking a big swing for Josh Allen because that's what we need.
You just
want that deal too.
Yeah, I would love the deal, but you just want that 6-9 game to come in to play Josh Allen again.
I want that. Well, but I want to give up picks. I want to give up picks because they don't matter, dude. If you get a proven commodity.
No, I'm with it. I'm
Allen would work out well. He's had a little injury history, but I do like we did his rookie year and then this past season, 7.5 sacks. And I just think that at 24 years old, you got a lot to work with still with him. I would give up 30th overall if we had to give us a certified edge rusher right there because we have seen in the past that we can get good quality players in the second and third rounds of drafts. And so I don't really think we need to have that 30th overall pick. I think right now the focus should just be get as many edge rushers as possible on this team and get Frank Clark's ass out of here after June 1st. So that's my theory. But
Tell me more about Frank Clark, Mike.
Well,
He
I
sucks.
might talk more
He
about Frank
sucks.
Clark here on my solo show, Settling the Kingdom, here on Sunday. So keep a watch out for that. I got a few more
15-minute
details.
rant.
I'm going to go over some of the things that happened at the Combine and who else the Chiefs have spoken with during that live show as well on Sunday. So I'll be
Settling
wrapping up
the kingdom, guys.
and I'm looking forward to giving much more information on what happened with the Combine this coming weekend. So I'll be watching NFL Network all damn weekend, Tanner. I'm pumped, so
Yeah,
I'm
that's
excited.
right. Well, guys, anything else for the show today? We got about 10 seconds left.
Yeah, what do you want to say for 10 seconds? What do you got?
Guys, I will release my new Bubba's Projection Bracketology on Twitter, so we'll look for that.
Gotcha. All right.
Anyways, guys, I think that's it.
All right, then.
That's it, guys.
With that said, I'll see y'all on the next one.
See you guys. Woo! Woo!
NBA show.
Yeah,
For sure.
So I'm actually against it. It's so cool.
Oh, that's fine.